Leica Summicron R 90mm f2. First impressions.
Hello, welcome back to the channel, my vintage lens lovers. Hopefully you're all having amazing creative days. Today we're going to be looking at a lens that's special to me, but I would call it a classic lens in the vintage lens world. This is the Leica Summicron 90mm f2, and this is for the R mount. And this is the lens I actually started, this is the lens I cut my teeth in photography with. I learned how to shoot on this lens, and that's a story for the full review video, which will be coming up soon. It'll be linked down in the description when it's ready, but for now we're just doing like a first impressions, first look at this lens. I took it out for a little photo shoot today, a little walkabout, and I'm gonna show you guys the photos, but this lens is a beauty. Right off the bat, when you hold this lens in your hand, it definitely feels weighty and heavy. It's metal and glass and feels exactly like a Leica lens should. Well built and heavy. So yeah, it has a maximum aperture of f2, which is awesome. Now, this is a 90mm lens, and 90mm is a short telephoto length, and it is perfect for shooting headshots and portraits and that kind of thing. And at f2, you can get a nice creamy background. And although I don't actually shoot any portraits with this lens in this video, it is a fantastic portrait lens. Now, when it comes to the focus, it has a very long focus throw. You have to turn this thing a few times to get all the way around from one end to the other. But the good news is, if you're trying to nail critical focus in photography, it's perfect because it gives you so much little, you can have like so many little movements to get that critical focus right on the money. It might be a bit of a pain in videography if you're running and gunning and trying to focus handheld. It's going to lead to some wobbles, but for photography, it's absolutely perfect. So if you're thinking about picking up one of these vintage Leica 90mm f2 Summicron lenses, there's one thing you gotta know, and that is that there's two types of these lenses on the market. So this is the R mount lens, and it's meant for Leica's single lens reflex cameras. And then there's an M mount version of this lens as well, and it's meant for Leica's rangefinder cameras. Now, this one here is the R mount, and it's meant for SLR, and I have an adapter here by Hao, H-E-H, what is it? H-A-O, possibly E. I don't know how to pronounce it, but in any case, I don't recommend this adapter. If you can hear this, the machining is bad on this adapter, and there's a wobble in the lens, so it doesn't connect firmly to the camera. I'm not happy with that. I'm gonna replace this with an adapter by Photodiox, because they make great adapters and I stand behind their products. So this one will be replaced soon. So that's just something to keep in mind. Make sure that you know which lens you're buying if you're buying it off eBay or wherever, because that'll tell you what kind of adapter you need to adapt it to your camera. So with that being said, let's jump into the computer and take a look at the photos I shot earlier today. All right. All right, so first things first, I'm running a contest in the month of January for this Black Mamba cage by Small Rig for the Canon EOS R7. If you own an EOS R7 and you want to win this cage, check the description below for the contest details. And with that being said, let's jump into these photos. All right, so first shot is here of some bricks in an alleyway, and you can see there's a lot of detail here. I'm not sure what the f-stop is that I shot at here was, because it's obviously a vintage lens. If you don't write down your f number when you're shooting, the camera doesn't capture it. It just says 1/25 of a second, ISO 200. But the one thing I want to point out is that when you zoom in around all the areas of high contrast, you can see the purple fringing and green fringing. So there's a lot of chromatic abrasion with these vintage lenses, and that's absolutely normal for lenses of this time period. And me personally, I absolutely love this. I love the chromatic abrasion. I think it adds so much character. I love all the imperfections in vintage lenses. I think that's what makes them so special. I mean, if I'm shooting product shots of jewelry or a wedding and things like that, I want a modern lens and I want clean, sharp images. But for my personal work, I love the character of these old lenses. And then here we go. This is an alleyway. I think I was shooting at f2 here. I'm not too sure. It was definitely close to wide open if it wasn't wide open. Focus was here in the background in these posters. I was trying to focus on this face. And Leica lenses just have this, like, I don't know, 3D pop. There's this, like, you feel like you're in the image, and there's a depth to it. It doesn't seem flat. Some lenses, some camera systems, when you shoot with them, it seems like they take the shot and compress it, whereas with Leica lenses, it just seems like there's a certain breath to them. They seem alive. I don't know how to explain it, but once you notice it, you can't unnotice it. And Leica lenses seem to be really good at capturing that feeling of depth. So yeah, that's one thing to note. Next shot. Now this shot was definitely shot at f2, and I wanted to show an example of the creamy background, and wow, like this is on par or maybe even better than the Canon 85mm f1.2, and this is just an f2 lens. So something about the optics with this Leica lens, it just the background just gets blown away into creamy oblivion. And that should be a t-shirt. Creamy oblivion Leica f2 Summicron. Yeah, like wow, that is creamy bokeh. Like if you want to know what creamy bokeh looks like, that is creamy bokeh. That is a win. And here I just wanted to show a little contrast. We had like a maple tree with orange leaves and cedars with dark green. And I just wanted to contrast the two colors. Again, using the rule of thirds here. This is on the right third, and then a lot of empty space here with a lot of green, giving a sense of space. And then here again, just I wanted to get the colors and stuff. It was fall, so obviously, what are you going to shoot? The trees. Hey, and this is in focus too. So the trick when you're shooting with vintage lenses and you're shooting an object that's moving away from you or wherever in a particular direction is you focus ahead of the subject or in front of it, whichever way it's moving forward you or away from you. So in this case, with the Jeep, you focus ahead of the Jeep, and when the Jeep falls into that focus zone where it's in focus, you take your shot. So it's kind of like, playing Command and Conquer, or no, Call of Duty. When you're a sniper, you don't go around chasing your target. You set up your crosshairs, and as soon as they cross, boom, right? So same thing with the vintage lens is you kind of pre-focus where you want to take the shot, and you wait for your target to get to where it gets, and then you take the photo, and yeah, that came out pretty good. And then here, same concept, except in this shot, I missed the focus. I shot a little too early. You can see in front of them, these leaves are sharp. And it's kind of cool with this compression where you see all the electrical wires going back and forth. Looks interesting. And with this shot here, of course, it's fall. I wanted to get the leaves, and I wanted to put the subject matter in the lower third of the frame, and then have all like the urban stuff in the bottom half with the road leading into like the vanishing point, and then have like all these leaves above. And I just wanted the trees and the colors to be dominant and like overbearing on everything else. And yeah, I think I achieved that. That worked out pretty good. Happy with that shot. Here we have a nice maple tree with bright red leaves. Yeah, definitely sharp. This is definitely sharp for vintage lens. And here we have some leaves on some pebbles on the ground. And I must have been shooting at f2 here because it was overcast. Focus is on the stone and like 1 or 2 inches down, and you can already see it's already going into creamy oblivion. The bokeh is already starting to set in here on these stones. And then here, same kind of composition as before. I just wanted the trees and the leaves kind of dominating the shots, and these 2 red cars kind of tie in everything. But I think the vertical shot was definitely a lot stronger than this one. And here we go. This is kind of interesting. We got like the dip in the perspective with the road. That's kind of cool. I like that. And I shot one horizontal as well, except in this one, with this one, I think the horizontal shot gives a better feeling of the depth. And there's an interesting note here is that one of my favorite lenses on the Canon system is that 85mm f1.2, and from what I've been reading online, that 85 1.2 is closer to 90mm than 85. So when I look at these 95mm shots, and granted 85 and 90 are like, pretty close, but these shots remind me a lot of the Canon 85 1.2 because of the perspective. So I'm wondering if that lens really is maybe I should test out this Leica 90 and the Canon 85 1.2 and just see what the difference is if the Canon lens is really closer to 90. Maybe something to do in the future for another video. But yeah, I love the dip in this shot. It just adds a certain feeling of depth, and with that Leica 3D popish 3D feel, it all comes to life in the shot. Beautiful lens. And here's an example again of f2 and f16. So this is f16. This is as small as the aperture gets on the camera, and then this is f2. And wow, you can really see here f16 busy background, f2 background is blown into creamy oblivion. We should title this video Creamy Oblivion. Wow, like that's pretty impressive. And I'm just standing as close as I can. I think this is the closest focal length or shortest focus distance to the subject. We're focused on this red flower, and wow, at f2, the background just disappears. And here we have a shot of the leaves kind of like fluttering through the sunlight coming through the tree. And there's a lot of continuity and rhythm and pattern and movement. And I thought this was a pretty cool shot. And again, we got that beautiful chromatic abrasion that you get with vintage lenses. And it just adds so much character to the shot. And I love it. I love it. It's a very simple shot, but it's very beautiful at the same time. And here, I know you can't really get wide with a 90 millimeter, but this is a feeling of depth and width. Shooting a baseball field, you got this one man here, or woman, who knows, walking their dog, and it just this feeling of isolation and emptiness. You got this big open field, big sky, big trees, small people. I thought that was a kind of cool juxtaposition there. Here we go. We got the tree line taking up the bottom of the frame and clouds at the top. Lots of negative space. Just this feeling of depth and openness. And I thought this was kind of cool. We have this winding S road here with the trees overbearing. But again, it would have been better if the actual trees had more like colored leaves on them instead of all green, mostly green. But you can see the focus is pretty good. This is pretty sharp, this lens. Definitely a win. And here's the field again. And I noticed these like, sun was setting, so we had these like slightly on angle beams of light coming through the clouds. And I thought it was an interesting shape. So I took a shot of this. Overall, nothing too special, but I thought it was interesting with these shapes of light coming from the clouds. And then of course, again, with a 90 millimeter, you can't really get too wide. So this is the best you can do. So I thought this was kind of interesting with the trunk coming up through the middle and then everything kind of branching out from there. I thought it was kind of cool. And if we zoom in here, it's like, look at the detail. Look at the detail. This is amazing. For a vintage lens, this looks like EF glass from the 90s. Like, it looks like modern glass. And it's from a long time ago. Leica was definitely ahead of the curve when it came to lens design. Wow. And here I'm standing underneath a tree looking straight up. And this has got to be like 11 feet in the air. And look at the detail. You can see the veins in the leaves. Like, wow. That is crazy. And then here, these shots, I'm standing up with the camera here, shooting straight down. And I'm just trying to get these leaves with the water droplets on them. I thought it looked pretty cool. And you can see, again, look at the details in the leaves. You can see all the little, I guess, the cell structures or whatever they're called, the veins. And that is pretty awesome. And here again, focused on this leaf here. And with like the 3D pop kind of effect, like look at the texture on this leaf. And you can actually, I don't know if you've ever felt a leaf, a maple leaf, but I'm looking at this and I'm feeling the leathery texture of the leaf in my hand. It just looks so real. Like, I don't know, there's just some kind of like 3D goodness about this lens. Things just pop out at you. It's really cool. Another shot of a leaf. And again, I got a little closer here and you can see even more of the details. Like, this lens almost feels like a macro lens. It gets a lot of details. That's pretty awesome. And then for this one, I found this one purple leaf amongst these maple leaves, and I just shot it, thought it would be interesting. Again, composition with the purple leaf in the lower third. You can see how everything gets nice and creamy up here at the top. It's just, wow. It gets creamy real fast. And again here, focused on the water droplets, and then bocalicious goodness in the background. Okay, no more leaves on the ground, promise you. And yeah, so here again, we got this bright orange tree standing out. We got this nice hilly kind of road. Okay, and those are the photos shot with this lens right here. So this is a fantastic lens. Overall, I would say the sharpness on this lens, considering it's a vintage lens, is 10 out of 10. It's amazing. I'm really enjoying the photos, but I know this might be a little controversial. You can take it with a grain of salt, but I feel like this lens is almost too good to be considered a vintage lens. I feel like it's too sharp. It's too clean. I don't want to say it's clinically sharp like the new RF lenses, but it's as sharp as those old EF lenses from the early 2000s. So yes, technically it's a vintage lens because of the age, but it doesn't have the character and the flaws and all those things that I love about vintage lenses. It doesn't have that weird halation. It doesn't have the ghosting. It doesn't have a little warpiness. It's missing a certain character. Even though it is a vintage lens, it's too good to be a vintage lens. It's more comparable to lenses of like the 90s and early 2000s. So, I mean, kudos to Canon. It definitely, I mean, kudos to Leica. They definitely were ahead of the time. And the one thing that this lens has that a lot of those other lenses don't is that it has that 3D feel, which is pretty awesome. Hopefully you guys saw that in the videos here. I don't know if it translates into YouTube with everything, but in the photos, when I'm looking at them in real life, they just have this 3D pop, which is pretty amazing. And it's one of those things that it's hard to describe what it is, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. And then you either see it or don't see it in all the lenses that you shoot with. So this lens definitely has that 3D pop. In fact, all Leica lenses pretty much have that. There's just something unique about them. So those are my thoughts on this lens. Full review of this lens coming shortly. I want to take it out on some portrait shoots. I want to shoot it in night shots, day shots. I want to try some more landscapes. I want to shoot some video with this lens. So I really want to get to know this lens before I make a full review video. So this is just the first impressions. If you want to see the full review, obviously subscribe to the channel. And I also have a lot more vintage lens videos coming up. So if you're into vintage lens gear, definitely subscribe to the channel. And also, I have photos shot with this lens on my blog. So if you want to go check that out, you can see some more photos with this lens. All right, with that being said, peace out. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.